Hello and welcome. Greetings from beautiful Traverse City, Michigan, where spring has sprung but snow still falls. My name is Amanda Rude, and I am the Executive Director of the National Writers Series. We are so grateful to have you join us for this very special evening with two New York Times bestselling authors, Brad Meltzer and John Searles. We want to thank our literary sponsor for tonight's event, Reynolds Yonkoff Funeral Home and Cremation Services. Thank you also to our sustaining sponsor, Cordia, our winter-spring season sponsor, Golden Fowler Home Furnishings, our arts benefactor sponsor, Michigan Northwest Arts and Culture Network, and our major media sponsor, the Traverse City Record Eagle. This event is also made possible in part by the Michigan Arts and Culture Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. Tonight, Brad Meltzer joins us to discuss his latest book, The Lightning Rod, the hugely entertaining, highly anticipated follow-up to his #1 New York Times bestselling thriller, The Escape Artist. Brad is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Inner Circle, The Book of Fate, and 10 other bestselling thrillers. He also writes nonfiction books like The First Conspiracy, about a secret plot to kill George Washington, and the Ordinary People Change the World kids book series. He is the host of Brad Meltzer's Lost History and Brad Meltzer's Decoded on the History Channel. Brad is joined by guest host John Searles. John Searles is a New York Times best-selling and award-winning writer whose novels include Help for the Haunted, Strange But True, and Boys Still Missing. The film adaptation of Strange But True is currently streaming on HBO Max, starring Brian Cox and Amy Ryan. John's books are published in dozens of languages around the world and have been voted Best of the Year or Top Picks by the Boston Globe, Entertainment Weekly, Salon, and the American Library Association. John's new novel, Her Last Affair, was published in March 2022. We hope you enjoy tonight's conversation. Please welcome to our virtual main stage, Brad Meltzer and John Searles.
Welcome, everybody. I'm John Searles. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. I don't know if anyone's getting that. Okay, that seems to have gone away now. No, I still hear it. Are other people hearing that sound? Sorry. Brad, are you hearing it? I don't know. No, okay. Well, I'm just going to charge ahead. I am so thrilled to be here to talk about The Lightning Rod by my friend, Brad Meltzer. And since Amanda gave that lovely, wonderful, official, professional introduction, I thought I would give a more personal one. And for many, many years, I was a books editor at Cosmopolitan magazine. We've all heard of Cosmopolitan. And I back in the early 90s, when I was first starting as an assistant, as an intern actually, opening book packages, we all heard about this guy at the time, a 27-year-old law student who had written this incredible, gripping, captivating thriller that everybody wanted to read, and was snapped up by kind of a publishing guru, this guy named Rob Weisbach at the time. And everybody wanted their hands on this book. And so then everybody read it, and we were all blown away by its success, by how captivating it was, but also by how heartfelt it was, which is something I've noticed about Brad's books throughout the years, which we'll get to. But if that wasn't amazing enough, as I went on to work in magazines, the thing I noticed was then Brad kept doing it again and again and again. There would be another book, then another book, and another book. And every time, as a magazine editor in a books department, you get sent hundreds and hundreds of books, and somehow Brad's would just kind of rise up out of the piles that would come, and everybody would say, oh, is that the new Brad Meltzer? Is that the new Brad Meltzer? And I would have to call the publishing house and say, would you mind sending over an extra 10 copies? Because everybody on staff wants a copy of Brad's books. And this would happen again and again and again. And if that's not enough, then Brad started branching out over the years, and not just writing these incredible thrillers, but also writing a book series for children, Ordinary People Change the World, which was incredible, and then went on to great success and became a television series. And then if that's not enough, then Brad wrote nonfiction books as well, like The First Conspiracy and The Lincoln Conspiracy, which were just as riveting as his fiction. And finally, then Brad became a television star of sorts on the History Channel with his shows there. So he's been a great inspiration for so many writers professionally. And I was thinking today, and in the last week, as I've been reading his books, what has made him a success? Because a lot of people have great books and put them out there and then kind of maybe disappear into the ether, but Brad has great staying power, and I think really it's the love he has for his characters, which is so apparent and oftentimes surprising when you're reading a thriller to turn, as I found in this book, to turn a page and suddenly you're stop and you have a heartbreaking scene, which we will talk about in this book. And also the care he gives to other writers and the friendship he gives to other writers. So it is my great privilege to share the evening with him and to interview him about this incredible book, which I hope you, if you haven't read, you will all read, The Lightning Rod.
All right. Thank you, Mr. John. I will tell you, I know John so long because I prepared almost that same story because I know John so long that when I met him, I had hair. And
I think you
and
did.
I remember you put me in Cosmo, and when you do these events now and you get put into a magazine, whatever, my parents, my mom, before she passed away, read only 6 books in her life. They were my 6 books. And she didn't read the regular newspaper. She didn't care about the New York Times. She didn't know anything of that, but she read Cosmo.
She
and you
read
impressed
Cosmo.
my mom, baby. So that I will forever associate with that. I remember from the start, and you were always one of the nicest. So thank you for hosting me tonight. I do appreciate it.
It is my absolute pleasure, Brad. Really, really is. And this book is incredible. And there's so many things. I was showing Brad, everyone, before we came on, my list of questions, and I have many. But I want to start with the most obvious one before I jump into lots of other things. If you could say in your own word what this book is about to people watching.
Yeah, so let's talk about the book. And again, a huge thank you to everyone in Traverse City. As someone who went to school in Ann Arbor, who has a son who is still in Ann Arbor, who is literally getting texts from that son trying to give me updates on the Michigan hockey game right now. It is 2-2 for anyone wondering. And let's be honest, if you like books, you don't like sports. So we're going to just assume you're all okay. But I will tell you, although if anyone has a score update, you can put it in the Q&A. It'll be helpful. This book is my 25th year of being a published author. And what this book is really about, I'll tell you, a few weeks ago at the start of the book tour, these 2 little boys came up to the signing table, and they said, and when in our kids' books that we do, the artist always hides me in the books. So in I'm Amelia Earhart, I'm hidden, and I am Abraham Lincoln, I'm hidden, and I am Rosa Parks, I'm hidden in the books. And this little boy comes up with his brother and says, Brad, he says, I can't believe you met all those famous people. You met Rosa Parks, and you met Albert Einstein, and you met Dr. King. You are obviously a time traveler. And his brother looks at him and says, that's ridiculous. He's not a time traveler. He's a vampire. Look at him. And I love that he added look at him at the end. And the reason I talk about that is because this is a book that's really about dysfunctional family. And we all have dysfunctional families, right? Every one of us has dysfunctional families. And then we go and we build our own families. And when we build those new families, we then build our own new dysfunctional families, and they all are. And in this book, I'll give you the general setup because it always starts with my great fears. The book is about one of my greatest fears, which is when you hand your keys over to a valet at a fancy restaurant. And that's what a character does right at the beginning of the book. He literally hands his keys over to the valet. The valet takes the car keys. He drives to the man's, instead of parking the car, he hits the little GPS button on the steering wheel, and then he says the magic words, go home. And now he's plotted a route. The car has plotted a route to the man's house. The valet is driving to the man's house. He has his car keys, and he's got his house keys, which are on there too, because he's going to break in. This is a robbery. And as he breaks into the man's house, though, there's another man waiting there with a gun, because this isn't a robbery at all. This is a trap. And when the body goes to our hero, who's a mortician, he sees something that's hidden on the body that no one is supposed to see and that everyone else missed. And it leads to one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. And I just ruined chapter 1 of The Lightning Rod for you, right? So I just ruined the first 5 pages. But I will tell you, that's the plot of the book. That's the setup of the book, I should say. But what the book is about are these characters. And I do a lot of work with the USO. Our main character is named Zig. And Zig is a mortician, which, by the way, I love the fact that this event tonight is sponsored by
I
Reynolds
saw
Funeral
that.
Home. We are sponsored by a
saw
funeral
that.
home where the main character is a mortician. Reynolds, I love you for that. And Zig believes that you can make the world a better place by putting kindness in the world. And that's a beautiful idea. That's an idea that's completely naive, but it's an idea worth fighting for. And I do a lot of work with USO. Zig works and buries lots of people for the US military. He'll rebuild someone's jaw with clay, smoothing it over, 12 hours worth of smoothing it over with clay because a family wants to see their son one last time, or rebuild someone's hand from scratch because they want to hold their son's hand one last time. And I love that he has that view of the world that's so beautiful. And then there's Nola. And Nola, I found years ago, this is all true. I was in a government warehouse that was filled with art. And I was like, why does the Army, the US Army, have all this art? And they explained to me, and this is true, that since World War I, the US government has had an actual painter on staff painting disasters as they happen, whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's 9/11. And I said, you're telling me everyone else is racing with guns blazing, and you've got someone who races in with nothing but paintbrushes in their pockets? That guy is crazy. I want to meet him. I got to meet him. And they said, you mean her. You want to meet her. And that's when Nola was born. And Nola is the other character of this book. Nola believes, unlike Zig, she believes if you want the world to make sense, that you got to force it to make sense. You grab it by the throat and you force it to make sense. Nola was thrown away as a child, has no father, has no family. She'll never have a father. Zig lost his daughter when she was younger. He'll never have his daughter back. So Nola will never have what she wants in that family. Zig will never have his daughter back as he wants. They will never have what each other wants the most, but together in this adventure, they will try to build this dysfunctional family together. And to me, that's what the lightning rod really asks. Nola is the right lightning rod. She's the one who attracts danger. And that's basically the setup of the book.
So one of the things, Brad, and I've noticed this in your other books, but in particular with this book, when we're talking about Nola and how you make her heartbreaking, because Zig, as you said, is this force of good in the world. And it's not that Nola's not good, but she's kind of damaged goods a bit, if that's an apt description. And she's the lightning rod, and she has a certain view of life that by force I can kind of shape the world as I want it. But then what you do to just really pull at our heartstrings, which is surprising in a thriller, you cut back to these chapters of her past. And don't say anything you don't want to say, because I don't want to give too much away to people. It's always hard to talk about a book without giving too much away. But for me, the nuance of those chapters, they just added such a deep texture to a thriller that you don't always find in a thriller. So could you say a bit about
Listen, my son, who's 20 years old and is at the University of Michigan, he read this book. He read it before it came out. And you could have 1,000 people read the book. When your own kid is reading your book, you're just having a heart attack. And
I bet.
he read the first chapter, the one I just ruined for you, and he said, oh, Dad, good start. Great start. And I was like, okay, but I'm still watching him read. When he was done with the book, he really liked the book. But what he said to me is, those flashback chapters are one of my favorite parts of the book. And what you're seeing in there, and what you're seeing in Zig and with Nola, is you're not seeing two characters solve a mystery. You're seeing my own view of the world compete with itself. I fully am Zig. I fully believe you put kindness in the world, and that's how you change the world. I am also fully, completely Nola, convinced that if you see an injustice or you see something wrong, you fight like, a dog with a bone. You fight like you've never fought before. And all I'm trying to do in these books, I've realized over and over in these years, is I'm just working through my own issues, trying to figure out which view is right. That's why they're interesting to me, because they both have opposite views, but they're both right. And I think all of us have to realize that. So for me, if I'm a firm believer in history, and if you show me your history, I'll show you who you are. You show me who you are when you're a kid, I'll show you who you are. And that's all Nola is. Those scenes with Nola, when we flash back to her, are to me the most breathtaking scenes, and they take my breath away because they're just like, oh, that hurts. But they're the ones that all readers go, that's the one I want to read. That's the one that broke my heart. That's the one that made me cry. And for me as a thriller writer, I know you can like blow up buildings and scare people, and that's not scary to me. What's scary is the human stuff. It's walking into a bathroom in the dark and you hear something, a noise on the opposite side of a closed shower curtain. That's scary to me. And so
Yeah.
Nolas are just me pulling out those strings of someone who has real problems, and suddenly that book comes to life because hopefully she comes to life.
And now to extend to another character, because the characters are so fascinating in this book, let's talk about Nola's brother, Roddy, because he's heartbreaking in a different sort of way too. So speak about
Yeah,
Roddy.
so and I won't want to ruin him. He's our wild card,
Yeah.
obviously. He's a new character that comes into the book, and you don't have to read The Escape Artist to read this. You can. Plenty of people have read the Lightning Rod Cold. It's all explained right as you start. There's no, dun dun dun. You better read all of them in all orders. But Roddy's this brand new character, and I won't ruin him, but he's broken in a different way than Nola, and there's a question of we all know bad kids when we grow up. I know people say, oh, there's no one's born bad, but there are some people who they're bad. They have that the wrong instinct. I know growing up there was always that kid. Every school I went to, always there was one that you can point out. You were like, don't mess with that kid because you don't know what you're going to get back.
They
It's
were
going to be
often
bad.
torturing me.
Right. And listen, me too. I got punched in the face by two.
Yeah.
But I remember those kids, which is why I write them now. But I love that idea of what you do with one of those kids. That is to me a fascinating idea, and that's what Roddy is. But to me, obviously, the fun of the book is the researching kids like that, researching even the plot points. I mean, one of the things I've taken readers into the underground tunnels below the Capitol. I've taken them into the secret tunnels below the White House. When I was researching this book, and it has a Michigan connection, which I've never been able to talk about, and I was saving for here. I found out, and this is true, that the U.S. government has about a dozen secret warehouses hidden all across the country that they use to deal with bioterror attacks, whether it's anthrax, whether it's smallpox or anything else. And so it means if there's an attack in New York or in Texas or in California or right there in Michigan, within hours, they will have antidotes right there in the city. And I said, you're telling me that the U.S. government has secret warehouses nobody knows about, nobody can go inside, nobody knows what's in there?
This is
I want to go, right? I want to go inside there, right? I want to go inside. And so I got to go inside. But the thing that was fascinating is these warehouses were built out of these secret missions and secret, top secret things that the government did in Michigan. So when Eisenhower was president, they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we protect the president when there's a nuclear war? Right? If something bad happens, they started figuring out, okay, we got to take the president, we have to move into a secret location. They started building secret locations, Mount Weather, and all these other places that are outside Washington, D.C. And that was called Operation High Point, top secret, this great, amazing, wonderful thing that people can read about now, but it was called Operation High Point. What no one knew is in Michigan, of all places, they wanted to figure out, well, that's how the president lives, that's how the Congress lives, that's how the Supreme Court goes on. But what about the rest of us? What happens to the rest of us, all the regular people? And to study that, they went to Michigan and they started Operation Low Point, also top secret. And Operation Low Point figured out for people what happens to the rest of us. They figured out an entire, if there's a nuclear war, we're going to take mail carts and we're going to turn them into hearses. They're going to carry bodies instead of mail. They had all these plans built in Michigan in a sanitarium of all things, because why not make it as creepy as possible? And in Michigan, they figured out the one thing they finally figured out is that it's, and this is terrible, but they figured out it's not going to work.
There's no way.
Right. No one's going to live. No one wins in a nuclear war. We all saw war games. And what happened is eventually, I won't ruin it, you'll see it in the book, but they started figuring out, instead of having solutions to nuclear war, maybe we should have it to bioterror attacks. And that's where these secret warehouses were born. So I love kind of pulling that apart, doing research into whether sometimes it's people and sometimes it's objects and sometimes it's locations. But obviously that's always fun to me. And I will tell you, which I never tell anyone, but there's always a hidden Michigan reference in every single book. So you have to find it.
Wow, that's good.
I did.
Speaking of research, so I read this thing about, I know, again, as I said, you would always impress me over the years because I would hear things about you. And then suddenly I heard like you would go to the White House and meet with presidents. And at one point I heard, and I hope I heard this right, and I'm not bringing up something I misheard, but that you read to President Bush Sr. Is this true? When he was dying?
Crazy. This is a crazy story. So so I have been lucky enough that President Clinton and President Bush Sr., George H.W. Bush, both I became friendly with over the years because they read the thrillers. They liked the thrillers. and both helped me do research for some of the books. They've given me blurbs on some of our nonfiction books. And what no one knew at the time, and we weren't allowed to say, when President Bush was sick and he was dying, they were inviting some of his favorite authors to come in and read to him. And I got the call. And I was in Kennebunkport, Maine, and they asked me to come in. And the Secret Service said to me, listen, you're going to read about 5-10 minutes because he's going to fall asleep. He's just sleeping most of the day now. I said, you got it. I'm honored to be here. Let's do it. And I got there, the Secret Service leave the room, and now it's just the end. I know it's the end. It's myself and my wife, President Bush, and his service dog, Sully. And he has on his desk a stack of books. And the books, one of them he has is The First Conspiracy, about the secret plot to kill George Washington, a book I worked on with Josh Mensch, a true nonfiction book, unlike this fictional one. And I said, sir, you want to read this book? He had given me a blurb on the book. President Clinton had given me a blurb on the book. And I said, you want to read this one? He says, mm-hmm. And because he couldn't speak at this point, it was mm-hmm or uh-uh. And so I read the chapter, and sure enough, he falls asleep. And as he falls asleep, I get to those words. This chapter that I brought to was the scene where George Washington has the Declaration of Independence read to his troops for the very first time. And as he is reading, as I'm reading those words to the president, I get to those words we all know. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And in that moment, President Bush's eyes pop open, boom, and he's locked on me. And I get to the end of the chapter, and he's still wide awake. I say, sir, you want to read another chapter? Mm-hmm. I get to the end of that chapter. You want to read another, sir? Mm-hmm. And another? Mm-hmm. And instead of just reading one chapter to the president for 5 minutes, I'm there for a full hour. At the end of the hour, I go back, I say goodbye to him. I know I'm never going to see him again, but to be able to read about the very first president of the United States, too, at that point in time, who was the oldest living president of the United States, was one of the most humbling moments of my life.
Oh my gosh, what an experience, Brad, what an experience. So can we just back up for a minute? So when is the first time, like, how do you go from being a writer to being invited? Like,
I know it seems crazy. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's totally crazy. And the reason it happens is I got a fan letter, of all things. It was the craziest fan letter I ever got. It came when I used to work. My first job from Michigan was an intern for the Senate Judiciary Committee in Washington, D.C. And at the time, they used to have pen signing machines, and the pen signing machines, would tell you the president, you sign like the senator's name. So I used to write to all my friends on the pen signing machines and write them letters on the stationery from the Judiciary Committee, and I would tell them they were being deported. I would send it to them, and they would basically be like, so I get a letter that comes from, it says, the president on it and the White House. And I'm like, well, this is obviously fake. This is someone who's sending this back to me, trying to use my trick back in the day. And what happened was, it was real. It was President Bush wrote to me. He's like, I liked your book. Can you send me a signed copy? I'm like, you're the president of the United States. I'll give you a free book. You get a free book. And I sent him the book, and I said to him, I was so struck by it. I said, I can't believe that you're the most powerful man in the world one day. This is after he left the White House. I said, you're the most powerful man in the world one day, and the next day you have to stop at red lights like the rest of us. And when that happened, I said, can I come see what your life is like? I want to see what it's like when you leave the White House, just like being a regular person again. And because he's so bored or so whatever, he says, why don't you come and spend a week with me and Barbara in Houston? So I had a week of unprecedented access with the former president. Were
you nervous?
I was so nervous because anytime you meet any president, I've met every president from George H.W. Bush to the present. I've met every single one in between. And every single time, anyone who meets a president knows you have a story to tell for life. Time slows down. You remember every single moment. It's like meeting John, who's your most famous person you ever met in all your time? Who is it?
Bill Clinton.
Okay. And can you tell me every single moment that you met him?
Yes, I can.
Right?
Yeah.
You know every moment. You can tell where he was, when he looked at you, when he didn't. You just know. And I'm nervous every single time to this moment. And I can tell you that you're trying to play it cool, and all you're thinking is, this is the president. This is the president.
I can't believe I'm here.
Right. How am I here? In fact, they invited me to a private lunch at the White House, and not in the big fancy dining room, in the president's private dining room upstairs. And I go up there and it's like, 15 of us. It's tiny. And they tell you where to sit. It's not like you choose your seats. And there's a little card, a little placard. It says the White House on it. It says Mr. Meltzer in beautiful calligraphy. It's like a work of art. And my first thought is, I'm stealing my card. I'm totally stealing my card.
course.
And the first lady leans over and they're like, Brad, everyone tries to steal their cards. And I'm like, I know all those novices. I'm like, look, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And then when she looked, I totally stole my
Take your
card.
card.
And I have my card. It's actually sitting right here. I do have it. So anyway, that's the but that's the fun. But that and then I wound up using that in the books. Like they showed me a secret passage from one of the bedrooms that's in the upstairs of the White House where the Secret Service can't go. You better believe I put it in a book.
So the whole time you're just taking mental notes.
Oh,
you're not actually.
It was pre-phones the first time I went there. Also, I would have been like videoing. But all I was doing was I had a pen and paper in my pocket and I would go to the bathroom and write stuff down so I wouldn't forget it.
Wow. So speaking of things in your office, you said you have that. Someone's asking if you could tell us what that telescope is over your shoulder. What is that?
Oh my God, this telescope. Wait, spotlight me in this video. This is bad. You gotta put me back on here. Watch. They're gonna see. They're gonna embarrass this person, right? You think this is a telescope?
That's what he said.
That is not a telescope. That is a lightsaber.
Oh.
That is that. By the way, I'm gonna find the nerds in the crowd right now. I'm gonna look right now myself in the Q&A.
Now it's gone.
A prize. Hockey going to overtime. Thanks, Mike. So I will tell you that is Darth Vader's lightsaber, and yes, that is actually a lightsaber signed by James Earl Jones, who went to the University of Michigan, and David Prowse, who was the voice of Darth Vader. It's signed by the two actors who played Darth Vader. So, and I use it because in case anyone comes here and I need to fight, that's my weapon of choice.
Then you have it ready. But is it behind glass? Do you have to break the glass to get it?
Yeah, it really is behind glass.
That's okay. But okay, since this is a writing center, maybe we should talk a bit about writing and process. So you're saying you're taking these notes, but I guess I'm curious, having written so many books over the years and having been aware and watched you do all this for me all these years, has your writing process changed from when you were 27 and wrote that first book that we all heard about, The 10th Justice, to now with The Lightning Rod? Like, what would you tell people about how it's changed for you?
Yeah, no, it's so completely. I think my process is still the same. I'm just more aware of it, right? I mean, you can't, I think I was doing my thing and figuring it out and doing it for about 20 years. I was doing the same thing. Like, give me a new book. I'll figure out the plot. I'll make it go. And the truth is, John, when I hit about the 20-year mark, I had my midlife crisis. And my midlife crisis was this, is I can keep doing what I'm doing. I was thankfully, successful, and my family bought a lot of books and that was great. But the reality is I kept worrying, like, am I getting any better? Like, if you're good at something, you can keep doing the same thing, but how do you actually, 20 years into something, how do you actually improve? And I took this really cold, hard look at myself and I said, look at the best books that you've written. And I wish they could all be the best books, but they can't all be the best books. So which ones were actually your best ones? And I took a really cold look and I identified which ones I thought were the best. And the one thing
based on what criteria?
On the criteria of just what I thought were the best ones. I didn't do it by like what sales were, although they oddly did kind of the ones that I thought were eventually made my list, but the ones that I personally thought were the best ones that I felt like even reaction 20 years later, the ones people are still talking about, the ones that still are like on the tips of people's tongues, like you talking about 10th Justice and remembering that, like which ones do people still remember and which ones were kind of forgotten and they just went on to the next one. And I identified 3 or 4 of them. And the one thing they all had in common is they were the ones with the best characters. And I realized for myself what I was doing and I was doing wrong is plotting comes more naturally to me. It's not that it's easy, but it comes more naturally. What's hard for me are characters. And what I had gotten was too heavy into the plots. The plot was this and the plot was that. I had this great plot for The Escape Artist. I went to Dover Air Force Base, where our fallen soldiers' bodies come back. I do a lot of work with the USO, and that's where Dover came on my radar. And I said to them, when a body comes back to the mortuary there, have you ever found a secret message on someone's body, like in a tattoo or in someone's pocket? Have you ever found like a secret note? And one of the people there said to me, actually, if you're on a plane, you're flying on a plane, your plane's about to crash, it's going down, you can write a note and you can eat it. And if you eat it and at the right height, the liquids in your stomach will protect the note upon the crash. And I said, that's a great story. What a great idea. And he said, it's not an idea. It really happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got chapter 1 of The Escape Artist, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to have a plane crash. I'm going to have someone open someone's body, and I'm going to get that note out. And that's the opening scene. And I know at this point, 20 years in, I know how to build the boat while I'm sailing the boat. I'll figure it out. Just tell me that and I'll figure out the rest. But I stopped myself and said, don't start the book until you have these characters. Don't start the book. You have Zig, but don't start the book until you have Nola. It took me an extra 6 months. It delayed the book completely. It was a huge gap between novels, but I said, just don't do what you've been doing and just start with the plot. And The Escape Artist became one of the most successful books we've ever done. Because of, yes, a great publishing job, and yes, all the things that have to work when a book has to work, from publicity to marketing to covers to everything else that has to go in. So much hard work goes into it. But it was the best character I had, which is why I had the depth to bring her back for another adventure. And to me, that part of the process has changed. I think I was letting things get too big, and I wanted everything to be so big in consequence. And I realized that the smaller it is, the bigger it is. The more you feel it here, the better it is. And those scenes with Nola, which are far more interesting for me to write. They have a depth that I wasn't allowing myself in those other books. So that's what's changed over time, is me just trying to get better and not just show up the next day and click the thing and do the same thing that I did the day before.
You also mentioned the acknowledgments which opened the book. I found them really fascinating, Brad, because you say about your humor, and it sounds like you have quite a group of loyal inner circle readers, and you say they challenge you on your jokes, because there's a lot of lines in it that actually I found very funny in The Lightning Rod, which I'm holding up for
Listen,
everybody.
John, I will tell you, I am so funny. Ask me. I will tell you at any moment. I put so many jokes, and my wife takes all the jokes out. She's always like taking jokes out. My friends are like, you're not as funny as you think. My wife is like, you're not as funny as you think. I'm like, I'm so funny, trust me. So I would say, a good amount of them get out, but the ones that are in, hopefully, are the good ones. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
and that's just me. That's just me trying to entertain myself. And I don't want to read some boring thing where it's like, here's the killer, here's the suspect, here's the end,
yeah,
next book. Like,
yeah.
and God bless the people who can, do them and make them good. But they have to be infused with humor and personality and, sadness and warmth and hope and heartbreak. I mean, that's what life is. We're all of those things every single day.
But just sticking with another beat with the process. So like when I met my husband years ago, I was much younger, and I would get up and write during the night from like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And he would say, like, when do you write? I never see you write these things. And now I'm like, come quick, I wrote a sentence.
Right. No,
So
trust me, when I was 20, when
you-
I was 27, when I was 24 and wrote The 10th Justice, I used to write 8 pages a day was my goal. 8 pages a day.
Wow.
And then the next couple of years, I started writing and aiming for about 6 pages a day. Then I started aiming for 4 pages a day. And now, if I can get 1-2 pages, that's a miracle. I mean, I tell myself that I'm getting better and those pages are getting better, that I'd have to edit them less. That's the rationalization I tell myself. But I think like anyone else doing something, like I hope that I can't tell you that I'm a better writer. That would be an egomaniac talking. But I can tell you that I'm much more self-aware, and I'm much more, and I guess like anyone doing anything for now 25 years, I'm just more conscious of what I'm doing. And the 10th Justice is me figuring out how to write a book. I don't know what I'm doing. There's no plan. I'm just going forward and going crazy. And that's what's so great about it, is it's pure instinct. I don't know anyone's judging me. I don't know anyone's watching. It's like I'm dancing and like nobody's there. And there's great things about that. And I love the purity of that. But you can only have your first once. And so now you've done the magic trick. How do you do another one? And I can do another magic trick the same exact way, but it'll just feel like the redux of the first version. You got to do it in a new way. So every book, I'm always trying to challenge myself. With The Escape Artist, so I was like, can I do these flashback chapters? I was a challenge myself. I've never done that in 20 years. Will that work in a thriller? I have no idea, but I'm trying it. I don't care. I've taken a book where I've taken a first person narrator and murdered them in the book. I'm like, I don't know if you can do that, but I did it. I'm not telling you which one because it'll ruin it. But like, they were like, you can't do that. I'm like, who's they? I want to try. Let's see if I can pull it off. And every book to me is me trying to figure out, can I one up whatever's done before? Because it's the only way we ever get better at anything.
So are there things that you've tried that you haven't worked for you that you still really want to do, but you're like, I haven't been able to figure out, or or is it you don't want to say publicly
No, no,
yet
no. I
because
mean, yeah, I mean, the truth is I don't look at it as like a checklist of like, I need to try this trick and then that's my trick. Because
yeah,
then all I'm doing is just relying on like tricks. I think the only thing I want to do now, and I think that's what I used to do, is just be like, I used to have this little check marks of, can I do a first person? Can I do a third person? Can I do a first person and a third person? Can I do, and I think all I want to do now is, can I find more depth in that character? I'm
yeah.
someone, I do a lot of work. I've been lucky enough to write Superman and Batman also, and
Yeah, I saw
Spider-Man,
that too.
right? And the reason
Comics
and the
and
reason
win
those,
awards.
right, and I appreciate that, but the reason those characters persist, what they taught me from my thrillers, is the reason why Batman and Superman and Spider-Man exist for these 70, 80 years, is because they have a depth to them that no matter how hard you scratch, 80 years in, you're still going to find something new. And I tried writing a recurring character. The first one I tried, I liked the character, but the character didn't have the depth to support another adventure. Like, I think every book has an arc, right? Like,
Yeah,
here's the character beginning, and then here's the character, and they're a different person, and the same person, but like all of us, on any kind of great moment in our lives or horrible moment in our lives, you transform. You're not better, you're not worse, but you transform. And I couldn't find that character until I had Zig and Nola that had that depth. And I think all I'm looking for now is just trying to find some depth. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to find you something about Nola you never learned, but what I feel is I want to find something about yourself that you didn't know. That to me is the ultimate goal. Is that I think the best books don't reveal something about my character, but they reveal something about us. And if
because the
you see
reason that it
yourself,
resonates. Yeah.
that's it. That's all I'm looking for.
Trudy Gala has a question, which she wants to know: how long did it take you to get your first book published, and how many times were you turned down? Actually, I don't know this part of your story,
So
Brad.
I will tell you. So Trudy, I appreciate that question. My first book got 24 rejection letters. There were only 20 publishers at the time. I got 24 rejection letters. And the book has still never been published. It sits behind me, actually, on the shelf behind me. So it's still published by Kinko's. The 10th Justice, which you were so kind about in the beginning, was my second book. And the first book was that's where I really figured out how to write. And it never ever worked. And I said, if they don't like that book, I'm going to write another. And if they don't like that book, I'm going to write another. And the week after I got my 23rd and 24th rejection letter is when I started the 10th Justice. But I'll tell you, Trudy, and this is true, this is my secret, is the 23rd and 24th rejection letter that I got, I thought were going to be acceptance letters. I thought they were going to be people telling me you made it, because they actually liked the book, and I went and met with them, and the last two people actually showed interest in it. And my agent, God bless her, Jill Neeram, said to me at the time, I think they're going to make an offer. And I was in college debt and law school debt and all this debt to pay off. And she said, sit by your phone. I'm going to call you and tell you what their offer is. I sat by the phone. I picked up the phone. And instead of her telling me what the offer was, she said, sorry, kiddo.
Oh,
and my heart just sank. I just was devastated, sank down to nothing. And what happened was, this is my secret, is every single day that I sit down to write, Trudy, I replay that moment in my head. From that, when she said it to me, I replay the phone I was holding in my hand. It was a clear see-through phone where you could see the wires inside, because I was like high tech at the time. I picture the desk that's on my left, like Formica desk with the swivel lamp that every college kid has. On my right is a bed and a box spring with no headboard, because we didn't have anything fancy like that. I look over this concrete parking lot and I see this fire station that has 3 doors. I count on myself 1, 2, 3, and I say those words, sorry, kiddo, because I never, ever want to think I made it, because the moment I think I made it, I'm done. I never, ever want to be anything but appreciative as I was when I was 24 years old. I never, ever want to be anything but as hungry as I was when I was 24 years old. And for 25 years now, every single day, I sit down to write, sorry, kiddo, sorry, kiddo, sorry, kiddo. So Trudy, whatever you're working on, keep going, keep going, keep going with it.
I was thinking, Brad, since it's your 25th anniversary of publishing, it might be fun to do a speed round of questions.
I'm ready. Yeah, speed round me.
Are ready? Are you ready for
ready.
speed round? And you can't think too much.
Okay.
And I won't hold you to these. Book you're most proud of.
The Escape Artist or 10th Justice.
Favorite book cover.
Ooh, I do love the 10th Justice. That was a great cover. That was a killer. Am I supposed to be mine or supposed to be like anyone's?
Your favorite.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm like,
So,
I'm answering all these questions. I love myself. Who's your favorite writer? Brad Meltzer. He's the best.
we know your books.
Okay, I'm ready.
Weirdest thing that's ever happened on book tour.
Someone brought me the Holy Grail in California. They brought me the Holy Grail. That's what happens when you have a TV show on the History Channel. People bring you the craziest things.
Book you wish you could rewrite.
Dead Even. It was the second book came out. The book I wanted to write was about, I wanted to write a murder mystery about the murder weapon. I wanted a guy who was recreating the Cain and Abel murder, and a serial killer who was recreating Cain and Abel's murder. And my editor at the time, I love him, but he said to me, don't do that. You just wrote a legal thriller. Don't go writing some historical thing. You're going to ruin your chance. We just got you on the bestseller list. Don't go do that. Just stay in your lane and do what worked. And I listened. And I love the book. The book came out fine. It was a good book, but it was the hardest book for me to write. I never made that mistake again. I never, ever. And that's why I jumped genres. I went from there to politics. The next book that came out was a political thriller. The book after that was a financial thriller. I write military. I write historical. Everyone always is like, you write this kind of, I'm like, I don't write anything because I write whatever I love. And I wish I could take that one and redo that one in a strange, odd way.
A weird writing habit or ritual that you have that would surprise people.
I say, sorry, kiddo, every time I sit down. I also replay something my mom told me when my career was going south. The publisher shut down after my second book, and the second book that even did not do as well. And I called my mother worried that I lost everything and it was all going away. Everything they got for me when I hit the bestseller list was going away. And I'll never forget, she said to me, I'd love you if you were a garbage man. And she wasn't taking a crack at garbage man. My uncle was a garbage man, but she was, I say that to myself every day. I sit down as a ritual. I'd love you if you were a garbage man, just kind of soaking in my mom's love for me.
It's really, I love all those answers. Actually, all of them are really great. And if people have questions, please chime in. But I wanted to actually ask, I read something about the 9/11 flag, that part of the History Channel show that you did when I was doing my Google search on you. You know, at Cosmo, we used to say, don't Google your date beforehand because then you know too much, but I decided to Google you beforehand.
Listen, well, we know each other, so that's fair. We dated long before. So, so there's a crazy story.
And this was part of the stories. Show. I mean, the History.
So the History Channel, yeah. So on History Channel, I went to the History Channel. We did Decoded, which we loved. I loved doing. And then I did a show called Lost History, and I said I want to use our TV show as a wanted poster. I'm going to tell the story of famous historical artifacts that are missing. I'm going to say to people, I'll give you $10,000 if you bring it back. And History Channel said, is anyone going to really bring anything to us? I'm like, they absolutely will. And whatever we think we're going to get back will never come. And the hardest thing to come back is what's going to show up. And I don't know what's going to come, but something's going to show up. And the very first episode, we told the story of the famous flag that the firefighters raised at Ground Zero on 9/11. That famous photograph, we see the firefighters raising that flag. Yeah. And what no one knew was within 24 hours, that flag went missing. No one knew where it went. And I told the story on television, and I said, anyone has it, please, I'll give you $10,000. Not my money, History Channel's money, of course. And what I couldn't say at the time is within, I think, 3 or 4 days after that first episode aired, a man walked into a fire station in Everett, Washington, in Washington, D.C. He said, I saw the show Lost History, and I have the 9/11 flag, and this is it, and I want to return it. And we spent a year authenticating it, going through on like a molecular level and all the dust and doing analysis. We had the former head of the FBI's art crimes unit working with us, saying this flag is now more authenticated than Rembrandt's museums. And I got to unveil that flag on the anniversary of 9/11 in the 9/11 museum, where it's now currently on display with my name in the little plaque that's there. And it was, again, I one of those.
Right, that's incredible.
I feel, my wife said, at what point did your life become Forrest Gump? But like, it does feel like that was one of those moments where I was like, to play that small role in that just amazing moment. I couldn't control it. I couldn't plan for it. But it was a wild, amazing moment.
I mean, would you ever, and there's a question from someone watching that I want to get to, but would you have ever imagined when you started out years ago, and I'm asking kind of these larger questions because it's the 25th anniversary of you publishing, but would you have ever imagined world domination or
No, we do not
or
have that. Listen, John, I struggle every single day with
yeah,
every single book. I
you
mean,
know,
today I
I
had a
know.
crappy writing day. Every book
But
is hard. But
I was
but the
kidding when I
answer,
said that. But would you ever imagined having all these great experiences, or were you just thinking, I'm just lucky to have a book published? Who knows where this will take me?
yeah, it's funny. My daughter had this thing at her school yesterday. They were trying to have like an empathy week, and where they're trying to show kids what it's like to like not be so focused on yourself. And they were trying to kind of get people to identify, and they identified by what age are you, what race are you, what your religious background is, what your family background is. And one of the things that was really interesting is that she said they do one for class, which scares the kids more than anything, is identifying what class you are, like how much money you're from, because no one wants to say I'm poor or I'm rich, right? So the teacher said, here's what we're going to do. Either you don't have much at all. It means you got nothing. It means like you don't have basic stuff, like you don't have shelter, you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you don't have anything. You don't have much, but you could use a little more, which means you're doing okay. You know where your food's coming from, but you can't go buy everything you want. You can't go fill up the car with a full tank of gas. You can't go do certain things. You can't play that instrument you want to play because it's too expensive. And then there's like, I got enough or I got more than enough. And all the kids were kind of like trying to figure out where they were. And I'm telling you that story simply because my family was not in the last category, but we were definitely in the second to last one. We in the the second one I mentioned. We were in that, like, we were on the edge there. And my dad lost his job when he was 39 years old, which seems so young now. Had nothing left, had $1,200 to his name, had no job, no place to live. We didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't one of those moments where you're worried about money. We were worried about safety. And I gave a fake address to go to the wealthy school that I didn't live in the district for, so I could have a better shot at getting an education, and became the first in my family to go to a 4-year, in my immediate family, to go to a 4-year college. And I tell you all that simply to say there's no friggin' way I could imagine lunch at the White House or myself on a TV show. As I said, my mom read 6 books. They were my books. There were no books in my house growing up. I had the library, right? I had a library, and I had and this chance at free books, and it made the whole world bigger for me. But I have a I think, active imagination, but even I couldn't imagine that I would be doing this. My sister and I still, to this day, like when a book hits the bestseller list, my sister's like, this is ridiculous. Like, she's like, we sometimes have to just stop again and remember how absurd it is that in one generation we were able to jump in a way that my parents fought so hard for us to be able to jump, and sacrifice so much to let us have that opportunity.
Oh, it's impressive. It really is impressive. So Darla Pinkerton has a question for you, Brad, which is, how long did it take to write The Lightning Rod?
So it's a gap of 4 years. It took about 3 years to write. COVID obviously slowed me down. It usually takes me about 2 years to write, 1.5 to 2 years to write. This one just took longer. COVID slowed me down. And Darla, I'll answer your second question. It says, do you find it hard to get back into the story when you're only writing 2 pages per writing session? And yes, I don't have a problem getting into the story. That's not, I think but yeah, when you're writing more, your brain is just clearly working overtime. I'm trying to write more, I think, more efficiently and at a slower pace, but I don't think it's hard getting into the story, because I reread what I wrote the day before, and that seems like a good amount. And then I kind of go forward from there. But to me, both of your questions kind of beg at this, which is, they're asking beautifully the same kind of idea. To me, writing is like building a sandcastle, a grain of sand at a time. And on day 1, you put down, 1 page, and 1 grain of sand, you have nothing. And day 2, you put down 2nd page at 2 grains of sand, you still got nothing. Day 3, 3 grains, nothing. But if you write a page a day, at the end of the year, you will have a book. You somewhere in there, the alchemy happens where you have your sandcastle. And that's beautiful. But writing is about sitting your butt in the seat and adding the grain of sand. You know this, John, every single day, you know better than anybody. And just not going, hey, it's Monday, I'm going to write 2 pages Tuesday, or I'll write 3 pages Wednesday. It's just every day putting down your grain of sand.
When you're doing that, Brad, who's your first reader? Is it your wife? Is your
My
first? You say
wife.
that in the acknowledgments. I think that it's her. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't think a book is written until she reads it. I really don't. It's truly like people say, "What page you on?" I'm like, whatever page she's read to. Nothing else exists.
so. And at
Um,
what point do you start showing her? Like page one, or page?
I showed her already the first chapter on the new one because I just like I have my own kind of I need someone to tell me, am I crazy? Am I not? Is this working? Is it not?
I know
So
that feeling.
I do, you know that, right? All of us have our spouses are like free therapy for us when it comes to the writer part of our lives. And then I can go like 50 pages, or I just get to a point where I get antsy and I feel a little blind. I feel like I'm in the snow in Michigan driving blind, and the wipers are not wiping it away, and I'm like, that's when I have her read it just to say, no, 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 you're on track, keep going, and then I feel brave again, and I can get back in the car and drive.
That's yeah. So Lisa Jennison, if I'm saying her name right, says, "Why did you become a lawyer and why did you leave law?"
Um, I'm going to be super honest with this. I went to law school out of fear. That's why I went. I didn't go to get plot ideas for novels. I went because I was terrified of having my father's life. I was terrified. My dad struggled so hard with money. My family struggled so hard with money. I knew at the end of the day, I didn't want to have that. I was so scared of having and reliving that. So I went to law school because even if everything bottomed out and the writing dream never worked and nothing else worked, I'd have something that could pay my bills because I didn't want to struggle like my dad did. And I was lucky. The 10th justice sold during my second year of law school, and I never practiced. I liked the law. I thought it was intellectually fascinating and interesting, but I think you have to follow your passion. My passion was always to write.
Right, we have that in common because my dad was a truck driver and no one in my family had gone to college before either. So I was the first, and we shared that. So I know we have to wrap up soon, but I wanted to take this question from Sue, who says, "Can you give us an update on the teacher you helped find a kidney donor?" Brad, you are Forrest Gump.
No, I know. I did. I found a kidney. I put on my Facebook page, my teacher, who I dedicated a book to, my history teacher, changed my life. Um, she said, I'm sick, and I see how many people you have follow you on Facebook. Can you see if you can find me a kidney and save me? And I was like, I'm going to find you the kidney. And I did. I found a reader of ours, donated a kidney and saved her. And the update, she's doing great. I just saw her. She came to the book event for the lightning rod. And I'll end with this because I think it's important. I'll give you the update on everything. Here's the update on everything. So Miss Sherman is doing great. And I love her. She just showed up, as I said, in Boca at the Florida signing. As for the update on books, next books. So for those who don't know, we also do a nonfiction series. So we did the Lincoln Conspiracy about the secret plot to kill Abraham Lincoln. We did the first conspiracy about a secret plot to kill George Washington. The next book in the series is called The Nazi Conspiracy. It's about a secret plot to kill Winston Churchill, Stalin, and FDR at the height of World War II. It's an incredible story. And Josh mentioned I are coming back to do that in January of 2023. And then for those who don't know, we also do a line of kids books. We do I Am Rosa Parks, and I Am Martin Luther King Jr., and I Am Amelia Earhart, and I Am Abraham Lincoln, to give my kids better heroes to look up to. I was tired of them looking at reality TV show stars and people who are famous for being famous or millionaire athletes. I was like, that's gross. Like, let's give our kids real heroes, heroes of compassion and kindness. And the next heroes we just came out with, I Am Malala and I Am Muhammad Ali. And I love those books. On the back of every book, there's always the message, the value that's there. So it says on the back of I Am Amelia Earhart, I know no bounds. On the back of I Am Abraham Lincoln, it says, I will always speak my mind and speak for others. On the back of I Am Muhammad Ali, it says, I will always fight for what I believe. And I want my daughter to have that lesson. And I want my sons to have that lesson. And I love how many people use our books that Chris Eliopoulos so beautifully draws for little kids. Use our books to go build real libraries of real heroes for their kids and their grandkids, their nieces and their nephews. And I love that we get to share that with people. So thanks to everyone for doing that.
Incredible. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and please pick up a copy of The Lightning Rod. It's a gripping, riveting read. I actually talked about it on Good Day New York today, Brad, by the way.
Oh, you did? Oh, wait, I got it backwards.
Yes.
Wait, did I have it backwards?
Yeah.
By the way, go buy John's The Last Affair. It's a spectacular book too. Don't just buy ours as a twofer. Go buy John's book. Huge thank you again. I have to say huge thank you to everyone in Traverse City. I love you for doing this. Everyone who put this event on, and all of you out there. I see all 70 was 71. Someone just logged off. 71 of you that came tonight. I really appreciate you being there and sharing your night with us. There's no nerdier place to be than talking about books on the internet, and I love you for being as nerdy as I am. So thank you for supporting the Lightning Rod and John and myself and everyone at the book festivals, at the book event that does this.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Brad and John, for tonight's great event. We encourage you to continue the conversation by purchasing a copy of The Lightning Rod and Her Last Affair from your favorite local bookstore. Thank you to you, all of our viewers. Your support makes all the difference. The proceeds of our events go to our Raising Writers programs to help share the love of reading and writing with youth in our community. Thank you again to our literary sponsor, Reynolds Yankoff Funeral Home and Cremation Services, as well as to Cordia, Golden Fowler Home Furnishings, Michigan Northwest Arts and Culture Network, and the Traverse City Record Eagle. Thank you also Midwestern Broadcasting, Interlochen Public Radio, Traverse Area Community Media, Northern Express, AMACAL, Image 360, Traverse Repro Copy Central, Cherry Capital Airport, Traverse Area District Library, Horizon Books, and Northwestern Michigan College. This event is also made possible in part by the Michigan Arts and Culture Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. Thank you and have a beautiful night.